Welcome to the Stranger Conversations podcast, where we explore the lives and lessons of those around us, hidden in plain sight. I'm your host, Tay Jones. Hello and welcome. Today my guests are Steve and Kristi Goncalves, the parents of Kaylee Goncalves, who is part of a group of young University of Idaho students commonly known as the Idaho Four, who tragically lost their lives to a senseless act of violence in 2022. The incident not only rocked the U.S., but shocked the world. In the face of unimaginable loss, Steve and Kristi have chosen to turn their grief into purpose. Working with the Murder Has a Name organization, they are committed to honoring Kaylee's life by supporting victims, standing with families, and ensuring those seeking justice have the resources to pursue answers. So Steve and Kristi, welcome to the Stranger Conversations podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, absolutely. It's great to have you. And, first off, I just want to say, I am very sorry for your loss. I want to thank you both for having the courage to come on the show and talk about this. No doubt it's going to be a heavy conversation, but I can't imagine it's a topic that ever gets easier to talk about. But you guys have kind of moved forward from this tragedy and have really started to do some great things, and that's some of what I want to get into and kind of what's been next in your guys' life.
Great.
Yes. Yeah. So I just want to start a little bit light, if we can. I understand you guys are living in Idaho now, but you're not originally from there. What took you guys to Idaho? I love Idaho, so.
Yeah. Well, we were down in the Bay Area-ish, Napa, and he's from the Northwest. So he grew up up here, and he was down there for college and whatnot, and we met, and he was always like, I'm not staying in California forever. I want to move back to the Northwest. And I was like, well, I'm a California girl. I'm staying here forever. Well, he got online and he was doing some research on some areas and whatnot. And ironically, I was pregnant with Kaylee at this time. Okay. And he found Idaho. Well, it popped up as like a spot that sounds like it would be conducive to the things that he was wanting out of an area. So we originally flew into Boise and visited that area, and we actually drove, and I hated it. I absolutely hated it. And I'm like, you are not bringing me here. This is not it. Go back to the drawing board. So he went back to the drawing board. He goes, okay, what about, a little further north? But then I was like, that's too far from California. So he was like, come on, we got to try it. So we flew to Spokane. Kaylee had been born. Kaylee was just a baby at the time. And we flew into Spokane, drove over to Coeur d'Alene, and I'm like, let's put the house for sale. Done deal. Let's go. And we were moving out of California a few days after Kaylee's first birthday. And we had bought a house up here. And he wound up having to stay down in California for about a year. He stayed down there and worked his job. We moved him into an apartment. And I moved up here with our three kids, Kaylee, Olivia, and Steven. And then we finally got him up about a year later as he got a job up here. But he knew he had to make big money up here, and that was hard at that time. So he couldn't just take any job. So he had to stay back for a while down in California.
Yeah, absolutely. So you were pregnant with Kaylee when you moved there, and it sounded like you had two kids already?
We had two kids already. Yeah. I was pregnant when we checked it out, when we first checked out southern Idaho, and I said, no way. And then, but we came up when Kaylee it was just a few days after her first birthday. We had a U-Haul, and we were moving him into an apartment, and me and the kids were moving up here. So we did it. We made it. It wasn't easy.
Yeah, there was a website called findyourspot.com, and you could search for different criteria. It's like, I didn't care about a zoo. I didn't care about a museum. I was looking sports. I didn't care if I had a stadium. But ironically, one of the things was low crime, really good schools, and some infrastructures and stuff like that. And three places were in Idaho, which was the most. Boise was one, Sandpoint, and Coeur d'Alene. So, and there's an airport, so I could telecommute. I could fly in, still work my IT jobs in San Francisco Bay Area, and then come up here and buy a home and get us established. And I expected to work like that for as long as it took.
Well, yeah. So when we came up to Coeur d'Alene and we saw that, and I said, all right, let's go sell the house. The house was on the market for 1 day and sold in the very first day. And we're like, oh my gosh, the house is sold. So we immediately bought, we have a different home up here. And we immediately, came up, bought that house. So we would have a house to move into, because we weren't expecting it. It literally sold the very first day it was on the market, and it was an over, for what we asked for. And we're like, what are we waiting for? Sign the paper.
Yeah, so the house that Kaylee grew up in, we still own, and her siblings are renting it now. So
her brother
so we go there and visit it. It's kind of a reminder of a lot of the photos that people see are in that house.
Yeah. Her high school days were here at this house. When we moved out here, she was 8th grade, 9th grade when we moved out here. Yeah. So
Yeah, that's got to be tough, but it sounds like it would also be something that would be hard to let go. Keep it in the family with some memories attached to it.
Yeah, exactly. That's why we like our son there, and we're like, and he, he really loves those memories and cherishes those memories, and enjoys being there in that home.
Yeah, he's contracting and fixing it up and doing all the stuff, which is nice, So he's probably spent $1,000 on tools to fix the place up, which I really appreciate.
Yeah.
You don't get that from a normal renter.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so you guys have a pretty big family, 5 kids total.
Yes.
Right? Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so Kaylee was the third born, and then you have 2 younger ones. Are they quite a bit younger, or are they right around, are they all around the same age?
Kaylee was born in 2001, and then Autumn was born up here in Idaho, and she's 2005, so 4 years. And then we had Aubrey, who's 2006. So Autumn and Aubrey are basically like twins. Steven and Kaylee are basically like twins, but there's 4 years in between Kaylee and Autumn. So we moved up here. We kind of got settled in. We said, let's have one more baby, and we had Autumn, but there's a 4-year difference between Kaylee
2 more babies.
Well, yes, we were going to have 1 more, but we wound up having 2.
Yeah. I mean, Idaho is beautiful. We actually love it up there. We almost moved to the Coeur d'Alene area ourselves at one point. My wife grew up in Spokane for the most part, so we have some family in Coeur d'Alene, and we go to Post Falls quite a bit. Mm-hmm. And my wife's best friend lives in Spokane still, so she was just up there. I mean, it's a great place,
It is.
You get the beauty of the Pacific Northwest, but you're not necessarily in like Washington, Oregon. It's kind of its own separate world.
Yeah, they get more rain than us, and the weather here I feel like it's better.
It's still a very small town feel, although I don't know how much longer we're going to have that, because it seems like they're throwing up subdivisions every time we go down the road. We're like, that's new. So I don't know how much longer it's going to be that way, but during the 24 years that we've been here, 23, 24 years, it's a very small time feel, but you have everything you need.
Yeah.
Everything is right here. You have your Costco's, you have your Walmart's, you have your clothing stores that you need and whatnot. So, and if you can't, if you're not, then you just get on Amazon and buy it.
Yeah. It's a great place to raise kids.
It is.
Yeah, Amazon and online and having an airport really can be conducive for communities like this. We've just thrived, and ever since COVID and all that, we've just doubled. I work at the hospital, so they kind of keep a census of the community and how fast we're growing.
Yeah.
And everything that we've paid money for to figure out where our population is, it's always exceeded it. So we are growing very fast. And, you see that locals here are moving to Montana because that's a little bit farther out. So
they're kind of outcharging us, for rent, our younger generations that, starting a rental and whatnot, they can't afford it, and even property taxes and stuff. So, I mean, we're slow down here, these taxes are getting out of control. So, it was great. I mean, it was super cheap. We came up here and bought a beautiful home for $125,000. That's absolutely unheard of now. Absolutely unheard of.
Yeah.
So that is the sad thing. So it is sad, so.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, a great place to raise kids. It sounds like your guys' family is pretty tight. All the kids were tight.
Yep.
And do did you guys have any grandkids? Anything?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, we have grandkids. Our oldest daughter has blessed us with 4, and one of our younger daughters, Autumn, she has 1. And our son is about to get married on the 4th of July, and they are ready to start right away. So we're looking forward to some more.
Yeah, well, you guys are very busy. Very busy.
Yes, it's been busy. Yes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, tell me a little bit about Kaylee. I mean, who was she as a person?
So Kaylee, was very independent. Always had been, from early on. She was like in the middle. She wasn't quite as old as the older, not quite as the young as the youngers. So she kind of had to, find her spot. So that was tended to be with the olders, Stephen and Olivia. So, that's where she wanted to be.
She actually partnered up with Steven.
Yeah.
And Steven had his best friend, his cousin. So there was 2 older boys that she wanted to roll with, and anything a boy could do, she thought she could do. So they were riding bikes and throwing the football and doing crazy stuff that boys do, and she just
she was like,
right there with them.
I want to ride that dirt bike. I could race you. I'll beat you. I'll run fast. She would run so fast she would run out of her little shoes, just to beat her brother or her cousin.
I think she was faster than the boys,
or their friends. And we had friends that had some property, and they had this little tiny Yamaha motorcycle, and all the boys were like, Kaylee was like, I want to get on it. I want to get on it. But unfortunately, she did
she crashed the whiskey throttle.
She did the whiskey throttle, getting on, and drug herself all the way up the hill. And they're screaming, "Let it go, Kaylee! Let it go!" So she got some pretty bad road rash.
But that made her a tough girl.
Yeah, but they all carried her in. All the boys, Kaylee crashed. I mean, this was a little tiny motorcycle.
Loved it.
Pants all torn up, and drug her up the road. She forgot to let go. But I'm sure she would wakeboard and snowboard. We had a boat and went out and wakeboard, and she's just the little tiny thing at the time. And same with snowboarding. She was the youngest that Steve ever got up to the mountain and snowboarded with. She was always she was very much that what is it? The FOMO, fear of missing out. She had that since the day she was born, literally. So she was always like, I think her first words were, "What about me?" And she would pound her little chest and say, "What about me? What about me?" And we're like, "You're going. We're getting their jackets on. Hang on. Go get your jacket. What about me? What about me?" And she was very ornery. She was very ornery for whatever reason. If you had electronics in your house, such as back in the day, phones, your cordless phones, or she loved remote controls too. She loved wherever we went, she loved to throw them in the toilet. So, when we'd go over to family's house, they'd be like, "Kristi, Kaylee did it again." You're and those phones back then, they were like $100 a phone, and I'm like, "Oh my gosh," and we'd be like, "Why do you do this?" And she thought it was funny. She thought it was hilarious. Or she would, get the batteries. Anything with batteries, she would learn how to get the batteries out, and she would hide them, and we'd be sitting there like, "What?" And then we'd be like, "Where are the batteries?"
And
we'd be like, "Kaylee, Jade." And then as she got older, she was just, she was very determined in school. I can't say that school was always easy for her, but she always had her grades were always perfect, but she worked hard for those grades. They didn't come easy. Like, Stephen and Olivia, they just skimmed right through school. They didn't have to even, they just went buzz, right through. And Kaylee was just like, "Oh, heck no, you're not going to be the only ones that get A's. I'm going to get those." But,
want to get better grades than that.
She had to, she was in an advanced class in 4th grade, and the teacher during a conference, she said, "I'm not quite sure Kaylee's quite ready for this. We put her here, but I think she's really struggling. She's doing great, but it is tougher. I think that, we might move her back this semester to the regular class." And I was like, "Please, let's talk about this." I'm like, "You don't know what you will do to this child. If you move her from that advanced class, she will have a meltdown." And she's like, "I thought about that. And I actually thought the same thing." So we'll just leave her. I said, it's okay. If she struggles, but she's still pulling, she's still doing good. She'll catch up. And we always talked about that, because I'm close with all the teachers and in the district and whatnot. And we still, we'll talk about that. Like that was, when I said that to you, you literally were like, you can't, please don't do that. She will literally melt down. So, she always wanted to be the best. Middle school, she met Maddie, and, Maddie was just everything. From then on out, it was Kaylee and Maddie. It was always, whether they were over there, we met Karen and Scott. Karen and Scott met us. It was every night, every single night. School nights, it didn't matter. It wasn't just weekends. It was school nights. It was vacations. It wasn't even like, can she come? It was just like, Maddie, did you get your bag? Like, we're leaving in the morning to, to go to Mexico, whatnot, and you talk to your mom, right? I mean, it was just known. It was just a known fact.
That's why there's a lot of pictures where they're like, if you zoom in the background, there's always, Maddie, or if you zoom, there's a picture of Maddie, then Kaylee's in the background. So even like, we have like, the cement fingerprints where you do
the handprints by the pool.
Maddie's in those as well because she was here when we laid those concrete. So
yeah,
they were very close, and
all through.
That's like you said, it was a forever thing. They had known each other what seemed like forever because you don't really remember much about first and second grade, and they got, since their memory was they'd always been best friends. So
they really were. And our family loved Maddie, like, and even all the other sisters in the house did. So, it wasn't like, sometimes a friend can come in and, a sister or a brother be like, I don't like her. She's a total brat, or she's mean, or she's rude. She never was. Like Steve, sometimes she would go into Steven's room and they would sit there and chit chat for a couple hours. She would go hang out with the little girls and be like, you guys want to play a game here? I'll do your makeup. Let's paint your nails. Let's do your hair. So, the little girls loved her, and Kaylee would be like, what are you doing? Like, why are you in my sister's room? Like, whatever, Maddie, So the only one that would get mad would be Kaylee, because she would be like, I can't believe this. You're supposed to be like with me.
But she was a single child, so for her, having a house filled with different personalities doing different things was a fun thing. So that's why they really got along, because Kaylee'd go to her house and it was just very quiet and very like.
But she got that one-on-one attention from Karen and Scott, that one-on-one child attention that Maddie got. And she was like, this is so nice. Like, your guys' dinners, and you guys eat dinner at the table. I mean, I'm throwing plates out like, hurry up and eat and don't make a mess,
Fighting over portions.
So they got the best of both worlds, because Kaylee loved going over there. And I mean, even though she wasn't the only child, because Maddie was there, she had that sense of the feeling of what it's like to be an only child. And sometimes that's exactly what she wanted, and and you need. So, they did. They had the only child world, and then they had the world, full of,
family.
A bunch of kids. So, they're great. I mean, we miss them so much. It's just so hard that, that we lost both of them. I think that really is,
you can't prepare for that.
I mean, but
everyone's heard of somebody losing one child, but then you think, you lose two, and you're like, and so much of what they knew about each other was them. So many questions that we had was for Maddie, and questions that we had about Maddie we would ask Kaylee. So you just lose this big moment of your life, because both people that were there are gone.
So it just kind of goes back to that day, when I immediately started calling Maddie over and over. And I mean, we really, really felt like something had happened to Kaylee, but we were still holding out, and I was just like, I don't get it. Why is Maddie not answering the phone? Like, answer the phone, Maddie, answer the phone, and it never dawned on me until, the police came and, said that it was a quadruple. And I mean, also it just hit me, and I was just like, wait a minute. It
doesn't happen.
Wait a minute. So,
And so that's how you had found out that Kaylee had died, was the police had come to your house, and they gave you at least some information.
Well, we found out earlier in the day, not confirmation, because I was like, until that sheriff comes, You know, this is just a bad mix-up. Something's not right. You know, I was really trying to hold out hope, but we did get a call earlier in the day from my niece saying that something bad had happened down in Moscow, and her husband's cousin goes to U of I, and she had called them and said, "Is your cousin Kaylee Goncalves? And isn't your cousin?" And Sabrina's like, "Yeah," and she's just like, "I'm pretty sure that Kaylee died."
Part of the community's not ready for something like this, but the university found out before we did, and then they did a vandal alert. So some of the students
that were just sitting outside their house
more than we knew.
Yeah.
So people were like, "Why don't we just jump in the car and drive down there?" Well, we already had somebody driving down there, and I was on call for the hospital. You can't just go out of cell range. You sign a contract. You can't just leave and go an hour and a half away from the hospital. So we stayed here, and we were in communication with Karen. And then when they came and told us at the door that they were both gone, because we had heard that Karen was going to the hospital for somebody that was injured or something had happened.
Yeah,
we were still
it was all a lot of just what is happening, you know?
There was nothing. It was all rumors.
Our whole family was here that day. It was a Sunday, and we were here watching the Raider game. And when you do go down to Boise, or to Moscow, I mean, I could have went. You do lose cell range for a long time, and I think just that idea of going and not potentially being able to like get that important call that you were literally waiting for from Kaylee, and we were all kind of rallied here as a family. I think that you know, because a lot of people ask us, why didn't you guys go down there? And you know, I don't know. We honestly just kept waiting for someone to say, hold up, everything's fine. She drank too much last night or something, and she's unconscious, but she's in the hospital. She's stable, but we were calling the hospital and we weren't getting confirmation of that. So, you know, our heads were just like, just stay put right now. Just stay put. Yeah. Let's get some more information. You know, it wasn't
a lot of rumors.
Yeah, it wasn't about, it's 2 hours away, and our daughter's not worth 2 hours of driving. It was nothing like that.
The rumors weren't consistent. They were like, there's like, what was it, fentanyl? And it was just all over the place.
She OD'd, and we're like, there's no way. There's no way,
we had plenty of people down there what we still knew from. My son was still enrolled in school, so we still were talking with people directly, and we just didn't know what was going on.
Well, Stephen had graduated the year before, but he still talked to his whole fraternity were they were texting him and whatnot, messaging him and stuff like that. And he's like, you know, I heard she OD'd, and then we heard that there was a party and she was shot, and then the news was reporting that there was an unconscious person. So we're not that anybody was dead. There was an unconscious person. So, you know, we were constantly calling in the hospital. We were calling the police department, and they were telling us nothing. The hospital was saying no
report of anything.
And MPD was saying nothing going on here. And we're like, what do you mean? Like, are you sure? Our daughter, Kaylee Goncalves, you know? So we were just really
Yeah, they just basically probably were under instructions not to tell anybody over the phone that something was happening. We, as far as we knew, nothing had been going on that was official, and Karen and Scotty were on the way there.
They were on down. When they got the word, because they heard something as well at some point. I'm not exactly sure how they got their news, but they did jump in the car, but they heard that it was Kaylee, and they were going down, and they were like, or Xana. They thought it was Xana, and they were like, we're going to bring Kaylee and Maddie home. We're going down. So when I talked to Karen, she's like, no, I don't know what's happening, but me and Scott will bring Kaylee and Maddie home tonight. We're going to get them. We're bringing them home. You know, it was a lot.
With all the rumors and everything, I mean, that can be really confusing, and obviously you're not getting any updates from official sources. But when the police finally did come to your door, did they have any information at all, or were they just telling you that Kaylee had passed away and to contact Moscow Police Department?
They came in and they said.
We crossed off the rumors we'd heard. We said, was there a shooting? Was there fentanyl? And he's like, no, that's all BS, guys.
He said no.
Which I'm very grateful that he did that, because
he told us. He said no, it was none of that. He said this was a homicide, and I said, a homicide, and he said, I said, she was murdered. And right now we're still thinking just Kaylee. I said, she was murdered. Somebody murdered her. And he said,
that's the first time we actually heard of a murder.
He said,
so people who are thinking that we just jump in the car and drive, again, I was on call, hospital. I'm supposed to be within 25 miles of the hospital. And you're not going to just jump in there when you've only heard it's an unconscious person at a party. You're like, what's that mean? And somebody's already on the way down there. Something's bad. But
well, we were calling the hospital, and they were telling us that Kaylee wasn't in the hospital. They were like,
Yeah.
But no, he did confirm that it was. He said, yes, ma'am. He said it was actually a quadruple homicide, and I said a quadruple homicide, and then that's when I asked. I said, can you confirm if one of the other victims was Madison Mogan? And he said, yes, ma'am. And I was like,
we had just got off the phone with her mom, and we're just like, what do we do now?
She was 25 minutes out, right? I got off the phone with Karen right before the sheriff pulled up, and she said, I'm 25 minutes out of Moscow. As soon as I get him, I'll have Kaylee call you. And I was like, okay, perfect. She just thought that, and again, the news was still reporting it's a unconscious person. The hospital was telling us it wasn't Kaylee.
We're a small community still, so it's not like a lot of people even went through a dry run of something like this. The communication wasn't. Mm-hmm.
And I think we were really just trying to not accept that, just not believe that. Like, no, let's not get, everybody calm down. It's going to be okay, Like, there's no way Kaylee OD'd on drugs, because we're like, there's no way. Like, I know you don't know everything.
The last murder was 2007 or something like that. So, it's not like this is a normal thing in our community. That's not even on the list of things that you.
So somebody being unconscious made more sense. Like, something,
sure.
Even
the drugs and the partying and something like that made way more sense than our kids
murder.
Were a part of some crazy mass murder. That made no sense at all.
And I didn't realize that Maddie and Kaylee were friends prior to college. But with you guys living so close to, in Idaho, so close to the college, were you guys close? Had you met all the other people that lived in the house that lost their lives that day?
So we had not. We had not met Xana.
She just recently moved to that house. That's why we had met the other houses that they had been at, the Whites, and also
she had moved in May, and she came. She wound up coming home all summer. So she had just went back in August, and that's when most of the new roommates moved in. Bethany, Dylan, Xana, and we had not met them. Kaylee came home more often than we went down there. She came up, and when I say home, this is home.
Do laundry, get food, cooking.
She.
We're in a little resort town, so all these employees, as long as you're a good worker, which all my kids, I would make sure that they are good. They leave every opportunity with a good standing. They'll let you come and work a weekend.
Yeah, they'll just be like, hey, I'm going to be in town this weekend. Can you throw me some hours? And they'll be like, sure. So Jack would do the same thing,
get some spending money.
Yeah. So
get their laundry done, so it happened all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you get a police officer coming to your door and telling you not only was your child murdered, but murdered along with 3 of her best friends.
Yeah.
You can only imagine what that's like, but, talk a little bit about what it's like to know that your child has been murdered and there's no killer. They don't know who it is. The killer's on the loose. What was that like? What kind of feelings did you guys have with that aspect of it?
I remember very clearly the officer being here, telling us that it was a homicide and there were 4. And I had never ever. You've heard the term "weak in the knees." That is true. I remember literally getting super weak in the knees, weakened knees, and just being just your body just starts to kind of panic. And we said, what do we do? Should we go down there? At this point we're and he said, no, there's no reason to go down there. There's nothing you can do. Here's a card and call this detective in the morning. And we were we look at this card and we're in the morning, it's 5:00. We have to wait till the morning. And
It sat at that door right there for probably 2 years. His business card. We just set it there in case we needed to ever call it. And
well, we did. It soon became a well-known number to us, but we just I think you instantly go into complete shock.
It's like a sensory overload.
It's denial. It's there's no way. I just talked to her, and we had just talked to her, and she was just here, and you're thinking homicide, like what? Were they beaten? Were they shot? Were they suffocated? You just don't understand. And I just don't think that as humans we are there something happens to just not numb it. It's not numb, but to kind of disconnect the brain, because I think it's just too much for a parent.
Yes, it's just like sensory overload where your body just kind of goes into a different mode.
I just started functioning like
She slept all the time.
I just was like a robot. Like, I don't remember people coming over. People were like, oh, when I came over, I'm like, you came over? Yeah. Like day 3 I came over and yeah. And I brought you a blanket and I brought you, I don't remember. I just, everything, your fingertips, the tips of your toes, everything hurts. Your heart hurts. I mean, it literally hurts. It aches. It just, and you're scared, you're terrified, you're frantic, you're helpless, because there's somebody murdered your child. And at this point we're talking about, we didn't even know how, who, what, when.
I was so much scared. I was angry. I had guns all over my house. I was ready to shoot anything that moved. I got a long driveway. I was like, told the kids that we're not going to become victims and scared for the rest of our life. We'll handle this. If this person's coming after us, then so be it. I did an interview once and I actually gave my home address because at that point, I'd just rather it be over.
They said, are you scared? And he said, no. Matter of fact, if you're watching, come on over to our house. And it was like a Fox interview that he literally was like, my address is blah, 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 blah. And
we had family that was staying over here.
We had family that took off.
We're leaving.
Our family that night, they're like, you just did, they watched it live. We were in the office doing it, and they were like, we're not staying here. Like, we are literally going to get an Airbnb tonight. Like, you just invited the killer to your home. And he's like, yep, I did.
I'd rather just,
and I mean, I was just like, I'm like sitting there like, oh my gosh. So they, and our 2 youngest daughters, they went and stayed at the Airbnb with, our family. And we were like, I mean, the address is going to still be out there tomorrow and the next day.
It was already out there. If you are somebody planned a 4-way murder, you already knew.
But
all the families and all.
I was scared. We had 2 younger girls. I'm like, do we let her go to school? We were hearing it was targeted. Was it Kaylee that was targeted? Who was targeted? Are they now targeting our family? It was scary. I didn't sleep much. I didn't come out of my room much, but sleeping was not something that, you just laid in bed and you just would cry and just every emotion besides happiness all at once. And
I as a father went more into a war mode. I was like, I'm going after this guy. I'm going to do every interview. I'm going to drum up as much people's eyeballs, as many people want to see and understand and figure this. I'll share this whole case with the whole world. And if enough people get involved and care, then the case won't go cold. Because if there's enough people watching, those type of cases don't go cold. The ones that I've already, and I'm no expert or anything, the cases that I've always seen go cold was there was no face. There was no one to talk about it. There was no one behind the camera. It was just super interesting, and then it kind of got cold. There was no evidence, and there was no mom or dad, nobody speaking on the behalf, and it just fades away. I was like, I'll make sure that I'm there, and do everything I possibly can to make sure that the case is still in some kind of spotlight.
We were like, look, because it was I don't know, 6-7 weeks, 55 something days, and
then once they got him, they're like, oh, you got to shut up, you got to be quiet. I'm like, No, I don't. I don't have to do anything.
Well, a lot of people don't realize this, but they did put a non-dissemination order on the case, a gag order, but our family was not gagged. So people
don't know that.
People say, I don't understand why he didn't get in trouble. He continued to run his mouth and this and that, but
And
our family was not gagged.
Is not running your mouth. Any idiot who thinks that a parent should have their kids murdered and then they need to be silent about it, protect the killer's right to privacy, is just a moron. But there's a lot of morons in the true crime community that don't fully grasp what it would be like if they were put in our position and put in our shoes and think that they would protect the killer of their kid. Well, maybe you would, but not in my family. In my family,
not me.
Yeah, you're getting the bull and the horns, and I'm taking you the whole way.
Yeah.
Yeah. So did you guys receive case updates along the way, or did they keep you in the dark because they needed to protect the investigation?
We were kept in the dark that whole month of December. This happened in November. We knew nothing. We had no idea the arrest was about to take place at all until the arrest. And then we learned most of the information in the PCA when they brought him back to Idaho. As soon as he touched down to Idaho, the families received an email stamped with our names because they were not to be shared. And in that was all the evidence that the judge had signed off to authorize the arrest on him. So...
And when you say PCA, like the probable cause affidavit, I'm assuming?
Yeah, it was watermarked, it was all protected. Another thing that we've never given out on this whole dissemination order that I'll give it to you because it came to my mind at this time. Our lawyer, they wanted to interview us differently once the gag order was in. They wanted to interview us deeply. And my lawyer's like, well, Steve, if they do that, then the chances of you being included in the gag order are pretty much going to be triggered. You're not going to be able to keep talking. You're not going to be able to advocate for your child. You're just going to be silenced. So I said, what do we do? And he's like, well, I can just tell them they can only interview me in the room. I'll be there and I'll decide if it's something that's going to be relevant to the case or not. So we never even did that. And some people were like, oh, that's suspicious. No, I just wanted to be able to advocate for my child and not be told that I was part of the gag order.
And this was over. We had already had an arrest. They had never interviewed us prior. You would think they would have pulled us in day 2, day 3 and said, hey, do you know anybody that didn't like Kaylee? Do you know anybody that had a beef with Kaylee? We never were talking.
It was just a step that got missed.
Once. Huge
step that got
but
missed.
Once the gag order, they're like, oh yeah, by the way, we want to interview you guys. And we were like, and then Shannon told us, he's just like, you do, and you could, I think it could also make us potentially witnesses.
Well, when you become a witness, then you're part of the gag order. So we were trying to protect ourselves from.
And he's like, I'm not shutting up.
Yeah, I'm not gonna. I would go to jail at that point. I basically would be, an agent of the court, I believe is what they called it. And I was like, I'm not interested in any of that because we did have information. We knew about a stalker that had an event that followed Kaylee, and so they were asking for those type of details, and we were giving them that information. But
which wound up not being anything. She had something had happened to her at a recent grocery store, and it
was all on camera. And
we weren't. If we thought we knew any information to help, we
were providing it.
Yeah, we were definitely providing. We weren't like, no, we're not talking.
But once the gag order, they had a bad guy. Now they wanted to do detailed interviews, which was like you had every chance to talk to us, and now it's just to shut us up. And I was not willing to be shut up.
Our job was not to protect him, and everything we read in that PCA was, that was all the information that we knew for the most part. Little things would come here and there, and you kind of had to vet them out. Like, is it true? Is it not true? But we were convinced that our police had the right guy by what was in that affidavit, that arrest affidavit.
DNA is the best type of evidence you could ever ask for. I've talked to FBI, talked to people, and they're like, it's done. It's over. You have DNA. If you let this go, then every case in America that's a really good case would be in question. You want DNA at the crime scene with the members of the crime part of it. The sheath had 2 victims and him on it. So it was, we were lucky. And that's aspect.
We were very lucky that he thought he was so smart, but he ran out of there and left his sheath on the bed next to Maddie.
And he just so happened to order it on Amazon, and they had all that activity and those records.
They saw that he had bought a K-bar. It's, he's not a fisherman. He's not a hunter.
Never bought
and that's
those
not
licenses.
that's not even the type of knife that you would get if you were an angler or
But if you're
it's a combat knife. It's a military combat knife.
Yeah.
That you go for Marines, that you kill people with.
You definitely don't buy it to protect yourself from bears, like some people have suggested.
Yeah. The amount that I know about the case immediately was like, wow, this guy he's not the brightest. I don't think if he thought he was really smart, he didn't do a very good job.
Well, I mean, even turning his phone off on the way over, that right there, because in the beginning, that's what he was even saying. He's just like, they're looking for cell phones that were on during those hours around. He goes, but is what they should be looking for is one that turned off and turned back on. And that was him.
Because college kids don't turn their phones off. Most adults.
Yeah.
I mean, how many times have you just actively turned your phone on? Don't say an airplane, because obviously that's by law.
Like you actually hard shut it down. And he did a hard shutdown, and his battery was at 100%. That was on the front.
And more than that, he turned his Wi-Fi off before he turned the power off. So the next time he turned his power back on, the Wi-Fi would be disconnected. So then he could turn it back on in a location and not get it to register. So he did a long process, and he did his research. But I think what it is it's not that he wasn't smart, or he is smart. It's just nobody's smart enough to get away with these kind of murders anymore. Yeah. The technology's too good. The science has been proven.
The ring cam, he was caught on the ring cam.
You're
just
done. If you think you can do a mass murder today, good luck. You're going to get caught, and that's the message. The message is, don't be a fool. Don't think that you can get a PhD and get away with it like this clown did. And
take lives, because
it's how hard is it just to treat people how you want to be treated? I mean, it really shouldn't be that hard. And that's at 1% of the population. We just need to lock these people up and put them down. I wish they would have just put them down.
Yeah. And so you find out just through the probable cause affidavit, you find out that they've made an arrest. You see all of this work that's been going on, that you were previously unaware of, and now the suspect has a name and he's in custody. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's how did that feel? Did you feel any sort of closure with that at all?
That was the first joy that we had in our life. Since this had happened.
So they called us. The girls had a celebration of life together, and that was on December 30th. And the night of December 29th, we had family in town for that celebration of life the next day. And I just had an utter breakdown, and I said, I can't keep living. Like I'm breathing, but that's all. Like I'm not living, like not knowing who did this, like not knowing, who did this. And at this time, we did know that they had been stabbed to death because of talking to the coroner and their death certificates. So we did know that they had been stabbed to death. How many times, this and that.
At that time, the cops had given us no further than what the affidavit was all that we really had paperwork-wise.
As to the evidence. But what had happened to Kaylee up until that time, we knew she'd been stabbed to death. We didn't know where she was stabbed. We didn't know how she was stabbed. We didn't know, anything like that. We just knew they were all stabbed to death. So, and then that night at 10:30, 8 p.m., my phone rings, and I had just fallen asleep, and it's our attorney. And I said, Steve, wake up. I said, Shannon's calling us. And he's like, well, answer the phone, and I answered the phone. I'm like, hello? And Shannon was like, Kristi, they made an arrest. And I'm like, what? And he goes, they have somebody in custody. I said, and it's the person. He goes, I just talked to the detective. They are 100% sure that this is the person. He is back in Pennsylvania. There will be a process to get him back, yada, yada, yada. And then at that time, we're like, well, what's the evidence that they have in this and that? And he said, until he gets back to the state of Idaho, they can't release that. So, hopefully he won't fight the extradition, and he will just, he will be willing to come back. So he jumped on a plane, and they brought him back. And as soon as he touched ground, it was like 7 or 8 o'clock. We were waiting from the courts. We were like, we're not waiting until the next morning. They're like, nope. As soon as he touches Idaho ground, we will give it to the families. And we got that PCA and we read it. We read about, they walked into the house and they saw, Kaylee and Maddie on the second floor and Ethan and this and that. And it appeared to be stab wounds and this and that. And they had this and they found a sheath on the bed and it tested this. And they took garbage from the house and he was circling the home, at this, from this time to this time, and he's seen speeding away at 417, which, and
we'd already seen part of that stuff.
We had, we were reading all this and we're like, this is the.
Once you see, I used to work at Genentech. It's a biotech company. Genetic evidence at a crime scene. Good luck. I mean, come on.
We had heard that the sheath, was found early on. We heard that, and we had asked them, we're like, is it true that you guys found the sheath of the knife? And they just told us, we were in an in-person meeting and they said,
who told you that and how did you
told you that? And we're like, well, we just kind of heard it. Like, I don't know, like, where we got the information. And they said, we can't deny or confirm that. So we kind of held out hope that was true, that they did have the sheath of the knife. But so much time had gone on, we're like, we're screwed.
We also heard there was a CODIS no hit either. So whoever did this didn't have a criminal background that placed them in.
There was a lot of people getting in contact with us, and some were crazy, some appeared not to be, and we were talking to anybody, trying to vet them out the best that we could. Some were coming in as messages. Some people were getting our phone numbers and just calling us. And, some people were just, it was wild. It was wild. And, you'd say, hey, babe, like today, this, like, I don't know, she kind of sounded crazy, but this is what she said, like, We
got like letters from witches from like Pennsylvania that like there's witching cults here and we're the ones responsible. It was wild, man.
Yeah.
We heard
they said, I heard that a pack of wolves went in there that night and killed all the kids, and we were like,
or a cougar. It was
it was
a lot. So when they say 62 terabytes of data was found, I could get it because there was a lot of crazies that were saying.
But then somebody, Sam would come through and say something, and you would say, I don't know, like, I think this guy might, really have this information that he's giving us, like, I think this might be true, So
there's a lot of students in there that were there, right there at the crime scene. They, we learned a lot of stuff. We knew about somebody being in the backyard. They've seen people, and
which came out later. Yeah,
had reported that they'd seen somebody in the backyard, or they suspected somebody was, and Murphy barking and stuff. So the whole stalking part thing kind of was like.
Yeah, I guess it's come out in the police reports, the documents dropped since the case has been closed, that Kaylee had said several times that, I think somebody's in the backyard, or Murphy was acting really weird and wouldn't return to her, which was unusual. And then Murphy disappeared, and she actually got in her car and was driving around looking for Murphy.
Yeah.
And
so when they're asking, when there was no suspect, they were like, what are suspicious things and we're like, remembering some of these things, and so
the roommates were telling them this stuff. The roommates, they were documented by the roommates. Bethany was saying, just about a week ago, Kaylee said, I think there's somebody in the backyard. I think they're,
and that's what we assumed the targeted was about, but we didn't know for sure. Just family trying to take little pieces and put them together the best that we could.
And with a mushy brain that is trying just to take everything in a brain that is in a tremendous amount of shock. I mean, that's what I believe. Just absolute shock.
The soldiers that
like
talk about
trauma brain, and you're trying to remember. You're like, is that what he said? I don't remember. Like, maybe he said this. Maybe he said, I don't know. And you're just going by everything you can.
Instincts,
just
instincts.
Trying to do the best you can and keep moving, keep living, even though, it was just, we had reporters down our street, down our road, constantly at our doors, like all hours of the night. It was just everything. We were living our life and everything changed in a moment.
Yeah.
But I don't want to rip just the media too, because they help keep the story alive too.
Oh yeah.
And I challenge a family that if you ever go through something like this, the media can actually be used to keep your case relevant.
We learned really quick, the media outlets, when we did interviews, like they kept it straight. They kept their, they said, and then others, we'd be like,
they'd edit it. They'd take half of what you said.
and they would literally cut it here and then cut it and put it here,
Change the question that they asked before you.
Yeah.
And then your question was for a different.
Yeah,
your answer was for a different question. So we just stayed away from those. But
we
we
learned
got
real
burned
quick.
a couple times.
Yeah, no, we learned real quick, and we were like, we don't F with this one, or this one. And we literally have blackballed them. And and literally to this day, we're like, nope, don't even call us. Yeah. So.
Well, that's good. Like you said, it's not all bad because they helped keep the story relevant.
Yes.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
you did, like you mentioned, you've got quite a few, people, they're trying to give tips to the case and everything. But besides just people trying to give their advice or potential evidence, how was the community? I mean, did you guys have a lot of support from the community? Did they stand by your family during this?
It was amazing.
We couldn't ask for anything more. I mean,
we
all
had,
the way down.
I mean, like day 2, day 3, I mean, that's why, when he, announced his address on the phone, it wasn't a really big deal because our living room, our kitchen, all of our counters were covered in huge bouquets of flowers and plants and whatnot. And it would be from the Smith family in Houston, from the Kennedy family in Savannah, Georgia. I mean,
Wow.
People.
And cops were doing rounds around there. I know all the officers.
We
coached their kids. We had no worries.
We woke up and there would be coffee and donuts on our thing, and the next thing you know, we'd walk by again and there'd be bags of sandwiches there, and I work for a school district, and our school district did like a meal train. And I mean, I think they brought us meals for like a month, and my sister was a part of that. She's at a different school district. So, just
nurses,
neighboring.
I worked at a hospital. The nurses did a huge thing for us. We were just showered with just love. And you need that because you feel like you could either think the world's completely evil or 99% of people are good, and then there's just this little subset that we have that we just haven't really done a good job of removing.
Well,
and I still think I see it every day when
evil is amongst us.
But it's just a very small group. But we've gotten so. I mean, the minute somebody gets arrested, we just candy coat them and we just kiss their butt the whole freaking time through. And, then we flip the whole system on the head, and we attack the cops, we attack the investigators, we attack the FBI, the CIA, and then they have to do everything absolutely perfect. If they have one bad day out of a crew of 30 guys and one person makes a mistake, we're supposed to just throw it all out for this one. Well, guess what? We just have nothing but we'd be like a third world country where people run around and control the cops or control the courtroom. So
and he's not saying we're attacking them as a society. They say, this, they're reading all these documents and people are flipping out over very small things, and demanding, and we're like, you're demanding the case to be thrown out
because of a signature.
He did have an attorney, and don't you think if she would have done that, like the whole case, he killed 4 people and they should get off because this minor, what I think is a minor detail,
paperwork,
compared to killing 4 college students.
And if you said, well, what if we what if they went after Hitler and put him through a court process? Would you just throw the whole case out because somebody broke the chain of command or did something? We got to get to the point where if you got evidence like camera, you're on camera, like what just happened with the guy who went after Trump. Why does this guy get a right to be innocent? He's literally on camera running past security in front of everyone. He's caught with a gun in his hand. It's stupid. We're just wasting taxpayers' money.
And then he says, "I'm going to plead."
And
I'm
we're all
not
supposed
guilty.
to pretend like he's innocent. Well, you gotta say he's the accused. No, we don't. He's on camera, freaking with a gun in his hand. He gets tackled, or he's shooting up a school. We gotta stop treating these little jerks that go to our school and kill our kids as if they're the same as some other innocent person that actually has a case.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Absolutely. Crimes caught on TV, on camera, crimes caught on, with DNA evidence left, the criminal, some of this stuff, like
some evidence should be, treated differently and just be like, all right, now you have a proof of being involved. You have proof of being involved. Now you got to go see why this is wrong. Maybe you got a twin brother. Maybe you got some real good reason why that person on that camera looks exactly like you.
Yeah.
But you're proof to be involved in some way. You know, we'd love to see the system
And these
get more
court
fair.
processes, I mean, we were in court for years. For years. It was hell. It was literally living hell to go through the court process.
Yeah, she was challenging everything.
She challenged every single
the death
thing.
penalty as being unfair, and
The,
he had every ailment in the world. You know, if you hate this guy, then you hate anyone who has, you know, Asperger's, and they redefined it as he has he was on the spectrum.
He's on the spectrum, so you know he should get off because of that, or he wasn't able to do this
you
because
can't judge him. You can't judge him for his actions because he has this ailment. It's just like, oh my gosh, give me a break.
Yeah, that's got to be tough sitting there and
it's so hard. It's
looking,
so hard.
looking
at the man who had killed your daughter and having to
these people, because they might really know somebody who's on the spectrum, and they're like, okay, I understand that my kid reacts differently than another one, but now you give it to the guy who actually murdered 4 people, who's just manipulating the system.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of times things like this can really tear a family apart. It almost seems like that. I mean, maybe there's been times, but I mean, just listening to you guys talk, and it sounds like, you know, the rest of your children, you guys are still really, really tight. Do you think that this kind of brought you guys closer together as a family?
I think we're always close.
I do. I think that we're always close. I agree with Steve. I don't think that it's wavered our relationship in a negative or a positive way. We've always had a very loving, strong, healthy relationship. We've been married for over 30 years. And, you know, we're blessed for that, you know, so we've never fought about this, you know, or, you know, we've always been eye to eye. Like, I want him to die. He wants him to die. You know, I would sometimes get mad at him, you know, being a little bit outspoken sometimes on the news. I'd be like, oh gosh, Steve, that was a lot. Like, you know, because we'd get a lot of backlash, but then, you know, it's like, you know, it is what it is. Like, if people hate us because we are not, you know. And
I'd rather the backlash come at me, because there was times where my kids had way more social presence than me. So at first they were being focused on. So I was like, if I get in the media and they come after me, that's probably the best case scenario we can ask for. And then our kids can like get accounts with different names and not have to have everyone attack them, because
now our kids just have to run around with fake Facebook accounts.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. They don't, but
and on that point,
just ran his mouth so much.
Well,
no. It's
just
they were literally going after kids that were minors. You know, we had she wasn't even an adult, and people were attacking her, saying, you know, there's more to the case.
And our kids have always, besides Olivia and besides Steven, you know, our Autumn and Aubrey have always stayed totally out of it. They've never done an interview. They wanted nothing to do with it. They you know, they understand, you know, what happened.
Go to school. They had stuff to prove.
You know, we asked them when we went to court if Autumn did go to court for the plea deal. And I said, listen, there's going to be a lot of people. They're going to come surround us. They're going to, you know, so, you know, we kept Autumn very protected. And she was like, I'm never going back again. That was the plea. So when sentencing came around, I asked the girls, do you guys want to go? Do you want to speak to him? You know, like, it wasn't really a situation I wanted to put them in. But I wanted to offer it to them. They were both over 18. That was their decision, you know, and they were like, nope. And I was glad. I didn't want them to be in the room with him, feel his evilness, you know. You know, after Autumn went that one time, she was just like, whoa, you know.
And there's good reason for that, for us to try to protect the littlest kids and then let the oldest ones be independent, strong enough to make their own decision.
Yeah.
Because even at the one of the procedures, the very last one where we
sentencing,
we made our statements.
Yeah, sentencing.
Somebody texted us a death threat. So
yeah,
you know,
really,
yeah. So
why?
Because we made statements against him, basically.
Yeah, I kind of made a joke about, you know, something about, you know, you never got, you know, physical touch and this and that, but I have a feeling that's going to change for you when you go to prison. So
yeah, I remember that.
They texted me and they said, I don't think your joke about Brian being raped in prison was very funny. And I know a murderer in Moscow. And I just gave him yours and Olivia's address. It was the silliest thing ever. And that's another thing. How people get our phone numbers, I don't know. They do. We still get weird messages. We'll get text messages. You'll get people calling you. But he did, and I sat right there in court, and he handed my phone to the bailiff, and you know, it was just from one of those like spam robot things where you could like call somebody from a fake number or text from a fake number. So
yeah. Well, I mean, and on that point, I mean, you know, Kaylee was the one who lost her life, you know, but both of you, the rest of your family, I mean, you guys are very much victims as well. I mean, was there kind of one thing that you guys learned kind of going through this whole experience that maybe you didn't expect, something that, you know, others going through something similar could learn from, that you could, you know, pass along to anybody that might be going through this?
You know, we learned a lot, actually. And, you know, one thing on our side and one thing on the court side. On the court side, you have no rights. Victims have no rights. The defendant has every right known to man plus. So that was really hard. So, you know, we're like, our daughter doesn't have any rights anymore because she's dead. That's, you know, and he had all these rights.
That's 100% the way it is. Like, his medical records are still protected. They're tossing out Kaylee's medical records like it's nobody's business because they don't care, and it sucks.
Well, her autopsy is, you know, is...
Yeah, but then they went into individuals' details of their bodies that had nothing to do with the crime scene. If you read them, I don't want to push it, but there was definitely stuff in there that were past events, past medical history that these people have had. And there was even scars on our daughter that go back to a car accident, and they classified them as one thing. It's a medical record. It's protected, but you got to have a real prosecutor who actually cares. That should have been redacted, and it just didn't get redacted, or there's some excuse that they didn't do their job. Yeah. That's why I can't wait for AI to take a more active role inside of our courtrooms, so these type of things will be done through a program.
But on the other hand, I mean, these are like literally words to live by, and for me, and there is no rewind button. There is none, not even real quick. And, you know, make memories, take pictures. So many times Kaylee was like, take a selfie with me. And I'd be like, no, you know, I mean, all those times I'm like, I would have said yes every single time. You know, there is no rewind button. Deleted it. You know, and then we have all these videos of the girls that night, you know, knowing what's about to happen to them, you know, and just watching this transpire and just not being able to do anything about it. You know, and thinking, this is their last car ride. This is her last meal. She's getting ready to eat her last meal. She's walking into her front door right now. Not that we could see her walk through her front door, but being dropped off, walking through her front door for the last time. Yeah. She got in bed for the very last time.
So we all agree everyone's innocent until proven guilty. So justice is never given to you. You have to earn it. You have to have a system that creates justice. So I implore parents, you got to earn the justice. You got to get out there. You got to advocate. You got to do something. You got to try to like make sure that everyone's doing their job, because everyone's innocent. So until somebody proves that this person's guilty, people want to get mad at cops. Well, that's their job. They have to prove that there's enough evidence to show who did it. So justice is earned, and you know, that's one thing I say to anybody who has to be.
You know, and we were very hard on the prosecution. We were very hard on the law enforcement, the people, but they're just like any other person. That's their job, you know, and you want accountability. This was my daughter's life. So, I mean, of course I'm riding their butt, and I'm like, you know, you guys are giving it your all, right? You're looking at me right now in my face, and you're telling me you're going to find this person, right? And they're like, yes, you know, and I, you know, and I'm, you know, and we're coming hard at them, and we're like, we want to meet once a week. And they're like, we just email the other families like, once a week. And I'm like, oh no, I want an email once a week or once a day, but I want to meet once a week, and maybe they hated us for that. We're all good now. Everything's fine now. We laugh about it. We're like, you hated us. He's like, no, I didn't. I'm like, you hated us. And he's like, oh, maybe.
And I said, there'll be a day we'll have a beer. We'll be done. But today, I need you to bring your A game every single day. And if I see signs that it's not your best day, just like when I went through coaching, it's my coach's job to tell me, you must have partied last night. You must not have got no sleep because you're just not bringing it today. And that's constructive.
I mean, judges, prosecutors, they're people. They're just people. It would just be like your son is not, catching on at math. You're going to call the teacher and say, what's going on? Like, is he not paying attention? Or you're going to hold that teacher accountable. Well, can you work with my son a little harder or whatnot, or whatever it may be, accountability. It was just all about, accountability. And this was our daughter's life. This was Maddie's life, Xana's life, Ethan's life,
Yeah, there's four people.
They have families to fight for them, so we just speak usually behalf of Maddie and Kaylee. But, we were hard on them, and we would go on the news and we'd be like, we so far nothing. They've told us nothing. We're not giving, they have us totally iced out, and, but we were just being honest. We were just being honest.
That's good. No, that's good. I mean, and speaking of accountability, I think that's a good transition to talk about, your new organization, Murder Has a Name. Before that, though, I do have one other question because I've never heard this, and I'm curious your opinions, or fact. Did you guys ever find a motive for this crime at all, or any opinions based on the evidence that was presented to you guys?
The detectives said that all they said was, all we know is that he was after either Kaylee or Maddie. And they said from day to day, they go back and forth. And there's two of them, and we've talked to them both, and they both say the same thing. They're like, one day, I think it was Kaylee. It was definitely Kaylee. Other day, I think it was Maddie. And then you're just back to the, I don't know. It seems like Xana and Ethan, it's unfortunate for all of them, but unfortunately, wound up being part of it. But
I'll go earlier than that to where they had a profile or an FBI profile. I went into a deep dive on what this person did. This person selected this crime, had really well planned the way that the way the blood was found, the way that there wasn't a trail outside. They knew that this person was very methodical.
Yes.
They knew he had planned this. It wasn't some
spur of the moment.
Yeah, some fight, some domestic thing, some frat, some stupid thing that happened, or six people walking.
It was very premeditated.
It was extremely premeditated. Yeah. And then later on, once they figured out who it was, they looked at some of the homework, some of the assignments he had done. They think that he had found some crimes in that community before that never got resolved, and that gave him enough reason to think that this community was someplace that he could come and get away with it. So, I mean, he ordered the murder weapon while he was there. So that's as premeditated as you can get.
He actually ordered the murder weapon back in Pennsylvania before he moved out to Washington.
That's what I was trying to say.
Yeah. So, and brought it out from Washington.
So he selected a community with the murder weapon. He bought the kit, bought all these different things for it, went out there. There's more stuff that we'll find out about this guy. Yeah. This guy was a complete psychopath.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow. Well, Murder Has a Name. You guys co-founded this organization, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, and from your website, it's a foundation created in Kaylee's name to carry her light forward and to help bring answers, justice, and closures to families still in waiting. And it helps fund advanced forensic DNA testing in violent crimes. And I can only imagine, right? This is all because of the DNA evidence that was presented in this case. So was the DNA evidence that the suspect left in your daughter's murder, was that the main evidence that led to his conviction? I mean, did that play just the biggest part in getting him arrested and actually convicted?
Yes.
Yeah, because the chief had aspirated, which they explained to us is just high pressure blood that is put into the air. It landed on that, and then
from Kaylee and Maddie.
And then on the other side was a button that he had touched. So anyone who was going to try to say that somebody planted it there, how would they get the aspirated at the exact same time that they planted it? Plus, why would they plant somebody's DNA that's not in CODIS? That's somebody that's going to make them have to go through this whole IgG. These guys are Moscow cops. They didn't even know what IgG was.
Nobody really did. I mean,
we're going to set some PhD student up and
be like, let's just destroy this guy's life
and go figure out, we'll get somebody to do some IgG testing. So that evidence was overwhelming. And once we had figured out how that can be constructed, you realize how damaged that is.
The IgG, is a newer technology in forensics. It's the familial trees, and you're done.
Yeah, we talked to somebody who was a founder of the Innocent Project, and we're like, we're talking about this, and he goes, this is the kind of case we don't do, because this is exactly what we want. We want the conviction to have this type of DNA evidence at the crime scene. But most of the cases we're talking about, there's somebody else's DNA there, and they don't freaking even process it. And
there's no DNA, yes. So IgG is it's extremely interesting. I never had known about it. And I have taken a strong want to learn all about it. It's very, it's not easy, it's very, technical. It's very scientific. But I'm taking classes and whatnot to learn everything about it. I want to pay for it for other families. So I don't want, when they say, well, what is it? And I say, well, it solved my daughter's murder. I want to be able to speak on it. This is how it works. So, I'm very passionate about this foundation. I'm excited about it. I think this is where Kaylee would want us to be. I don't think we just launched May 1st, and I don't think that I have felt this good since losing Kaylee. Putting this work in, talking about it to folks like you, doing podcasts and interviews can get very exhausting, but I'm like, we're talking about the foundation, and I just can't wait till we are able to get enough money, fundraise enough money to pay for, it's not necessarily IgG. There's other types of technology, not just IgG, but whatever
the list
DNA
is growing. So all these people who think that they're smarter than the scientists.
They could get you now without a hair follicle. So we've partnered with all these accredited labs across the United States, and we just partnered with one. I'm not sure if they're on our page yet. We just partnered with them on yesterday. But they could identify a suspect off of a hair without a follicle.
Yeah. And what roadblocks do the police agencies have to do this in and of themselves, like state labs?
It's just funding. It's absolutely funding.
Here's a good example. This one that they just talked to yesterday, there's only 2 labs in the world, or in the United States. We don't want to talk about the world because we don't know about that. But in the United States, there's only 2. So how many companies or how many counties and states have budget for a technology that didn't even exist? It doesn't exist,
this
right?
Is new. Yeah,
They're going to be like, where we're going to fund this? This technology just came out a couple months ago. So IgG is only 5 years old. So a lot of these cases, they lost their opportunity to use IgG because it didn't even exist. So we're trying to go back and help these officers. They've got great cases. They've done tons of work. They put together everything. And they probably have a very small list of people who they think it is. And IgG can totally tell them who it is. And they just don't have the budget. They don't have the line item in the spreadsheet that pays for it.
They're moving forward with cases. They're inundated with what's on their desks today, let alone go back and, do IgG on some of these older cases, so it is a funding thing. And, and I can't wait to help a family. All we are not solving the crime. We are not, that's the lab and that's the law enforcement. We're just coming in, we're bridging that gap and saying, here you go, Smith family.
We're taking all the true crime people who really, really want to help people. They come into the true crime with a pure heart, and they're thinking to themselves, this is how I protect my family, this is how I protect my neighbors, and this is how I make get the world a better place. That's who we're reaching out to and say, hey, if you fund this project, we're going to put this into these families that were in our same exact situation, but we were 7 weeks. These people have been years.
I can't even imagine. I just cannot even imagine living that long. It's just not living.
I think our case was one of the very first where they were supposed to wait for the case to pretty much go cold before they even used this. It was like supposed to be a last resort. And we're trying to flip that because IgG is a process of elimination. You just take the person's DNA who did the crime and you just say, I'm not going to find that person because I've already tried to. They're not there. But can I find people that are related to this person and whittle it down to where I'm trying to find the mom's tree and the dad's tree. And if I can whittle that down, and that's what happened. That's what happened in our case. And we need to stop waiting to the very last to do this because we're not invading those people's privacy because they are not the ones that did the crime. It's just like a lineup. These are just people that you whittle through and say, there's the guy. That's who it is. You whittle these people out.
It's in this lineage, So we also work with a company called GEDmatch, and that is, people say, how can I help? Well, we could say by donating, obviously, and another is uploading if you've done any of these any of these DNA
Family
kits.
Tree stuff.
Any of these kits,
you
could upload them to GEDmatch for free, and it is a huge forensic tool. We're never going to convince everybody to do that because there is a big, huge, thing around that of people saying, I'm not giving, my DNA here and there and this and that. And it's not like that. They're not going to take your DNA and put it at a crime scene. They're not going to take your DNA and give it to the hospitals so they can, know what kind of health issues you have.
So let me paint a bad scenario. Okay. I upload my stuff to GEDmatch.
DNA.
My DNA. You could never set me up for a crime because I'm not walking around with a spittle to link me to a crime scene. How am I going to get to a crime scene? Just because I upload my stuff to some database doesn't they can't take those results and put them in a crime scene.
Yeah.
So if you're a good person, you have nothing to worry about. If you live by the golden rule, if you're a good person, there's nothing to worry about. You're going to figure out who your family is, where you come from, all these different countries, all this great history. Now,
and it is a forensic tool.
And you're going to help solve a lot of cases.
So building those familial trees, obviously helps and makes things, easier for investigators and whatnot, because sometimes they can't do the IgG because it's just too far. They've got this sample here.
Well, mixed results can, if you have 3 or 4 different samples, like we had in our case, those you can't process those. So
how was ours mixed?
You have 4 victims. If you have 4 victims, you can't.
Oh, but not on the sheath.
No. I'm just saying there's some of the blood, some of the examples they wouldn't even be able to process.
Yeah.
Or they commingle.
Yeah.
That's an example of some of the things that can't be processed. Now, in the future, maybe 5 years from now, they could go to one of those things and now process it and be able to figure out, all right, here's Ethan, here's Kaylee, and do it. But luckily, we have one. But there might be other cases where there's a blend and it wasn't being able to process because there was a blend of it.
I've talked to so many labs, and we've talked to the best of the best. We've talked to the CEOs of these companies. We've had Zoom meetings with them that are on our page, on our website. And they tell us, they've all told us, that it's constantly changing. And they said, next year, this time, we will literally look at what we have this year right now, and we'll literally be like, wow, we've already gotten better. They just continue to get better and better.
It's hard to budget for it. It's hard to say.
It's not cheap.
This state needs to put $1 million aside for what technology? Well, that technology budgeted for is now not even being used anymore. So now,
because they keep up with the times, So we will keep up with being able to pay. We're not going to be able to pay for thousands of cases at a time. I mean, it's just the truth. It's not cheap. but we will pay for as many as we can for as long as we can.
We'll solve some big cases, and then we're going to find some people that are like us that are wanting to make the world better and the place better, and then they're going to give us a big donation, and then we're going to do hundreds of these.
We're trying to get if you have any connections with Elon, I heard you just became a trillionaire. Maybe let him know of this really great foundation.
Hey, it's a great cause.
And I'll be 100% transparent. Nobody takes a salary. Nobody takes money. We haven't even used the foundation for our business cards and our flyers and our brochures. We haven't even used the foundation money for that.
Yeah, we
literally, like our executive, I can't think of the position. Tracy, her name is Tracy Baracco. Her family pays for stuff. We pay for some
Tracy
stuff.
And Anthony, her husband.
But they're constantly, like we just bought a bunch of new business
they're
cards.
The kind of people who make the community better. They don't just complain. They don't just cry. They don't just whine.
Well, Tracy,
they put their foot down and they make things happen. And I want to find people like that. I've been trying to find people like that, and we have found people like that. And that's why we've had so much momentum and we're going so fast, is because we are that type of family to find people who've had enough and then rally behind them.
Yeah. And I know I mentioned it in one of our emails together, but I was a police detective, and so I've sent things in to the Washington State Crime Lab to be DNA tested. And one of the things, I can attest to that, they don't want to test it. They're only going to test it in very severe cases, and a lot of times they might even ask you, hey, which pieces of evidence out of this 100 things you sent to us, what do you think is the most important? Because we're going to test like 3 of them. And you never know where you're going to catch the bad guy. Is it in the one you thought was the least, likely to contain his DNA? And so, I could see how this, could maybe supplement some of the state crime labs, to test additional items in a case, just to make sure that you're really, doing your due diligence to find the suspect.
Yes. And that's what will make some cases more expensive, because they'll say, look, we have 6 items that need to be tested, and it's very degraded DNA. Anytime it's degraded, it costs more because there's other tests that they have to do to amplify it and whatnot, and make more profiles off of it and whatnot. But so that's expensive. Our case, actually, they said was a slam dunk, super easy. They said single source DNA, on a snap, one piece of evidence.
It was a large sample. People try to say it was small. It was a large.
They said it was actually a very large sample of DNA on the.
They could even run more tests on it, and they'll probably run more tests on it if it ever came to be. Hopefully, we're just done with it. We can move on, and people can understand that.
So those cases that we get that say, this is 6 items, we're gonna be like, okay, you got to do it because you want to help Timmy's Timmy's family. You're not going to say no because there's 6 items that need to be tested, but obviously those ones with one piece.
Well, maybe you get to test 2 and then you get them, and then you don't have to process the other ones.
Yeah. So but some are definitely going to be more expensive than others, but
and you did. Yeah, and you have partnered up with quite a few companies. Lots of big companies too. One of them, I've never known how to pronounce their name. I think Othrim, maybe, or Orthrim. And I follow their page. They're identifying remains that are 20, 30 years old to help families find their missing loved ones. The technology is out there. And so when you talk about these partners that are working with you, how exactly are they helping you achieve your goals? Just being able to do the procedures that states don't have access to, but also to supplement some of what just to get things into a lab in the first place, I guess sometimes as well. Yeah. Yes,
and a lot of these labs, they go to conventions. Okay, so they will be speaking of us when they go to these conventions. We will send them material, pamphlets and whatnot, brochures. So when they go to these conventions, they will talk about us. They will mention us. They will say, there's this foundation, and and they're up and coming and whatnot. So they really are. They do a lot of speaking points and stuff like that. So they will help us in that way, and
they can point us to like the hair labs. There's only a few of those. They're kind of a close community too.
It's very weird. The lab world, they all know each other. They're like, oh yeah, I know Angela and I know Jessica.
Fortunately, there's more than enough crime than there is labs. So, what they've tried to say is, if you want to be the face of this, if you have that kind of gift and that kind of strength, then maybe help people understand it and help people. Like, this shouldn't be the last thing we use. Like, an example of our case, it was like, I'm just going to say it's $10K, but it was less than $10K, but they spent over $100,000 protecting the old crime scene. So they paid 9 times more protecting a crime scene than they found how they solved the case. So maybe we just need to use money more efficiently and use this as a step earlier in the process. And we could I think we can end up saving a lot of money, because money's being spent chasing down leads that the IGG could tell you that this individual has. Some of them are now getting so good where they could tell you the color of the hair and the color of the eyes. So those type of things can limit your list of suspects like that. Yeah.
And how do law enforcement agencies, kind of access the assistance that you guys are going to be offering?
So, that is another thing we do. We will be, we do have people that, on our board that can advocate for us on that side of things. Great. And when it's time, right now we're just fundraising, and we will have like an application process. So they will spread the word, to law enforcement agencies that this is what we're doing. And, we've got Chris Hansen on our board. We have Nancy Grace, Andy Kahn, Beth Karras, John Douglas. He's the original mine hunter. He's the mine hunter. John Douglas is amazing. And, so we don't think we'll have a problem getting law enforcement to hear about us when we don't really, they can know about us. That's fine. But right now we don't have the money to fund anybody. So right now we're like, let's fundraise, and then we'll say, okay, unleash the dogs and, let the law enforcement know. So it's, we're kind of like,
we're hoping to get a case that, gets some attention to let people know that there's cases that are literally only waiting on funding.
Yeah.
And then, that's how we could bring some justice to a family. And once we do that, then we can bring awareness. And then maybe we start budgeting this in regular state funding or something. And then this isn't needed. And then that's a mission accomplished, because we'll be a safer place. We said we want to go to CrimeCon and be able to say every year our country's gotten less murderers, less mass murders, less school shooters, all the stuff. Can we put ourselves in a new direction to where we're all working to make our place a little bit safer? And I think that's the end goal.
Yeah, that's great.
For sure.
Where can people kind of follow along with the mission, support your mission, follow along with you, social media, that type of thing?
So social media, we have a TikTok, we have an Instagram, and there's a LinkedIn. Murder Has a Name. So, any updates are on that. We don't have a Facebook page right now, but we do have the Goncalves family page. And right now we are kind of using that because we do have a lot of followers on that. So we are using that right now to kind of put out a lot of information. Like we just started carrying merchandise. So, we pushed that out and said, hey, everybody. And we only did merchandise just because it was not part of our plan at all. We're like, look, I'm not into selling $80 hoodies. That's just, I don't want to do that. That sounds horrible, to charge somebody $80. But, we make like 25 cents. We have a drop shipment company.
So we have like a $9 shirt is what she's saying.
Yeah. So
we don't make any, we barely make any.
It's like 26 cents, and we, if anybody ever wants to see what our profits are on that, we're totally transparent with that. We will show you. We will show you how much, we've got that information right now.
I want to go to CrimeCon and have somebody have some connection to us before we've met them.
Right.
And they'd be like, that you are one of those people that are putting, truth in action.
Yeah, everybody that donates even $1, they are helping. They are part, the
profits all go 100%.
Yeah. So when Murder Has a Name is able to give a family the name of the perpetrator that murdered their daughter or their mother or their son, you were part of it. The community, if you gave $1, That was you. That was for, you helped that.
We hope one day we'll go to these conventions and we'll have a list of the families that we've helped, and then that's what we can hand out to the people that show up and say, hey, this is what you contributed this year. This year, these are the cases that we directly helped fund. And I mean, again, we're not solving it. The officers and the investigators and the FBI, we're not trying to take any credit from any of these individuals. We just found a gap, and we're trying to fill that gap with funding.
Yeah, well, that's great. I wish you guys great success in that. I mean, it's a beautiful story, listening to you guys talk about Kaylee and everything that you guys are doing now, and it's good to see that you guys are doing well as a family. I'll make sure that everything that you talked about is linked. People can find your website, go straight to your website, buy merchandise, help support your organization. And yeah, absolutely. And before we leave, I know you mentioned Tracy Bracco, I think is how you pronounce her name. Yeah, she's the executive director of your foundation, and she had said in one of her emails to me, murder has a name is a wonderful cause in remembrance of a beautiful soul. And I found a quote on your website that says, our daughter has a name, every victim and perpetrator does too. This foundation exists to make sure neither name remains unknown. And I mean, in this case, the suspect had a name. We haven't said it yet, Brian Kohberger. But now that the trial's over and he's been convicted of his crimes, I mean, really the only name that needs to be remembered at this point is that of the beautiful soul, your daughter, Kaylee Goncalves. So I want to thank you for joining me today. Really appreciate the conversation, and it was great to learn about you guys and a little bit about your story and what you have coming up with Murder Has a Name.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Your audience, I want to thank them all for being here and taking the time to listen to us.
Yes.
And we really appreciate all you guys, and we hope to partner with you.
Yep.
Absolutely. All right, you guys have a great night.
You too.
Thanks so much.